From how a smile proved a young woman's honesty in court to a caught-in-Providence moment featuring the judge's son, Judge Caprio is the internet's favorite judge for good reason. And here are some of his best moments of all time. The power of a smile. This video from February 2021 went viral for all the right reasons. Judge Caprio presided over a parking violation case where the defendant, Carrie, presented her situation. Her parents told her that it might snow that day, and to avoid getting stuck in the driveway, she decided to park on the street. Well, that was the wrong move. The next day, she wakes up to find that her car has been towed. Now, an interesting part of this case was that while the towing company charged her the full amount for the tow, someone at the towing company told Sherry she could get out of her court violation. How? All she had to do was act like she was a broke college student. Carrie, however, decided to go the honest route. Not only did she tell Judge Caprio what the man at the towing company said, their exact location, and she added the fact that she knew she had done the wrong thing. Carrie used the word honestly a lot, which amused both the judge and Officer Ziggy. She then went on to admit that while she did have the money to pay for the ticket, because she was not a full-time student anymore, the towing company had made her pay a substantial fee. She also was clear to mention that it did snow that day, admittedly, not enough to require parking on the street, but just enough to make her case. In the end, the judge said that he was going to let the parking ticket go because he believed she had paid enough for towing. Carrie was appreciative, and the judge moved on to the next case. In his closing remarks, though, Judge Caprio noted that, having worked these cases for a very, very long time, there are a few telltale signs of lying. Ironically, Carrie displayed all of them. So, why did he choose to believe her? Because, despite what any book says, the judge's lived experiences tell him that the one thing no one can fake is a smile, and that is the power of a smile. I am not going to waste your time. I am guilty in a court. In Providence first, the defendant, Joanne Ash, claims that she is not going to waste the judge's time by having him review the red light violations she stands accused of. When she came into the courtroom, Joanne said that she did not know about the 3 violations. Now, all of them were on Allen's Avenue, and the judge insisted on reviewing the footage. Joanna, though, said that if a video of her going through the red light existed, then that was it. She broke the law and earned a violation. But the judge insisted on watching the footage. Why? Well, because he wanted to show Joanne something interesting. Allen's Avenue has 2 crossing lines, one at the back and one right ahead of it. This makes red light crossings a bit confusing for the people of Providence, even Judge Caprio. It has gotten to a point where the judge believes that if someone crosses one line but stays behind the other, then they technically have not broken the law. Joanne did not, by his definition, earn the violation. After reviewing the footage that he insisted on, the judge asked Joanne if she wanted to watch the 3rd violation's video. This time, she was the one who insisted on it. This just covered 2 of the 5 violations. And despite Joanne's newfound enthusiasm to review all the footage, she was in for a shock. The next 3 violations were all in the court's favor. She did run those red lights. When the judge announced that she would have to pay a fine of $175, Joanne claimed she did not have that money ready on hand. Instead, she would need about a month to come up with it. Judge Caprio is known for being fair. He reviewed the footage once again and noted that Joanne had only crossed the red light by about 1/10 of a second and 1/5 of a second. In his opinion, that did not qualify as a violation. So, in the end, Joanne was ordered to only pay $85. That was the amount that came up for 1 violation. Joanne said she would have it in a week, but the judge gave her some leeway again and said she could wait a month till next payday. 5 days in jail. Catty Wallace was not the only one who came up to the podium when the judge called her name. With her came a whole cackle of kids, a kid on her hip, 2 older boys, and 2 twins, a grand total of 5 kids who followed Catty around all day long. When the judge asked if any of them were talkers, Catty said every single one of them would go on talking for days and days without getting tired. But the judge only had space with him at the stand for 1 kid, so Catty went with the most talkative one from the bunch, Alex. A confident little guy, Alex went straight up to Judge Caprio and even gave him his firefighter hat to wear. Now, he was running the show. The judge asked him if his mum was guilty, and Alex said no. But that was the only time he said no. Catty was in court for going a mile over the speed limit. The judge now handed Alex full authority on what her punishment should be. Should she be charged $50? Alex said yes. Should she be charged just $35, which would cover the court's costs? Alex said yes. Should she spend 5 days in jail? You probably guessed it. Alex said yes. The only other time he said no was when Officer Quinn stepped in to ask if he should get a raise. That was when Alex ran out of affirmatives. Anyway, the judge, however, decided to give Catty a break since she was only going a mile over the limit anyway. The judge could also relate a whole lot more with Catty since he is a father of 5 as well, all born within 7 years. Well, Catty had him beat because all of her kids were born within the same 6-year timeline, and 2 of them were twins. While the other kids were jealous of Alex and wanted to come up to the podium too, Judge Caprio said that they would have to wait another day. He probably got flashbacks to his own kids running around in that moment. Straight A student. Fun fact: Jude Caprio was not good at either engineering or mathematics when he was in college. He was not good at biology and chemistry either. Neither was Inspector Quinn. This fun fact was disclosed on a Court in Providence episode where a hard-working student, who just so happens to be studying 2 of the toughest subjects there are, is charged with a red light violation. She told the judge that while she is a commuter, she is usually on campus from 8 in the morning till midnight. She has to tutor and stay till 9 anyway, so she just brings it up to midnight by cramming at the library. Unsurprisingly, she is also a straight A student. When asked by the judge why she was in town, the young woman responded that she was celebrating with friends. One of them had their birthday that day, and she was celebrating getting straight A's. The judge showed the student the video of her running the red light at 2 in the morning. She said she had a reason for it. She realized the light after she had already crossed it, and once she was at the intersection, it just did not make sense to go back. Now, the judge and Inspector Quinn have a field day with this one, saying that for someone who got an A in physics, she sure did not measure the time, grain, slope, and speed appropriately. The student agrees. She was over the moon about her straight A's that day. Not that running through a red light is an excuse, but the judge does have a soft corner for someone who has dedicated so much of their time and effort into studying, creating a great path ahead for themselves. And while it is obvious that this student did not take pre-law in her course, she has taken more than the average student's burden, and letting her go easy on a parking violation is the least the judge could do. An honest boy. This next case involves a man who has recently moved to the United States to chase the American dream. He moved to Rhode Island with his wife and 2 kids, and started fresh, which included taking the driving test. Now, he claims to have been an experienced driver back in Africa, and passed his test 6 months ago, but the judge pointed out a key detail that he might have forgotten from the test. According to the traffic handbook that he had to read, the defendant should have known that even if it is not specified, the speed limit within city limits will always be under 25. The man, in this case, was driving at 35. With him in the car was his wife and 2 kids, and of course, the judge called the whole family up. His wife was on his side through and through. She told the judge that while she knew that they were going slightly over the limit, her husband would never do anything to endanger the family. So, that was one person in the defendant's corner. Funnily enough, when the judge called his son up to the podium and asked him if his father was guilty or not, the son said he was guilty. An honest boy. The whole courtroom bursts into laughter because of this kid's honesty, and Judge Caprio suddenly has a change of heart. Now, while Court in Providence is known for courtroom moments where the judge gives the defendants a break, that does not mean they always get away with traffic or speeding violations. In this case, it really did seem like the judge was about to slap a fine on the guy for going too fast. But there was something about his wonderful family that moved him. In the end, the judge gave him credit for having a spotless record back in Africa, told him to be careful next time, and let them go. World's greatest pizza delivery guy. Meet John Paul Sullivan, who also goes by the world's greatest pizza delivery guy. Unfortunately, John has landed himself in Judge Caprio's courtroom for not 1, not 2, and not even 3, but 5 traffic violations. Now, he has a boot on his car that he is hoping to have removed. For that, though, John would have to pay 3 red light violations and 2 parking tickets. Now, the judge is nothing if not fair, and offers John a chance to review the footage of him speeding himself. The camera does not lie, and John has to agree that he was, indeed, speeding. But he claims to have a good enough reason for it. He needed to get everyone their pizzas on time. 5 violations add up to a lot of money, and the judge can sympathize with the kid standing in front of him. He asks John why he did not pay the tickets in time, and the pizza delivery guy has an honest answer. It just was not at the top of the list of things he had to pay for. We are, after all, talking about a kid who probably has a lot of bills that include food, rent, clothes, and paying for nice nights out with his girlfriend. The girlfriend angle is what really catches Officer Ziggy's attention. When the judge asks him if he thinks John should get a break on his tickets, Ziggy thinks he should. Unfortunately, there is a boot on his car which would have to be removed and carries a $100 fine in any case. That, plus the fact that the video clearly shows John running through the red lights. There have to be some repercussions for that, and the judge thinks that $100 for the boot and $125 for the tickets sounds more than fair. He also gave John another break by letting him work out a payment plan at $20 a week. For someone who also mirrors as the fastest pizza delivery guy, John can make all of that in tips in no time. The breakfast verdict. The star of this episode was not Judge Caprio, the officer, or even the defendant. No, it was the defendant's daughter, Janine. The judge called her up to the podium and asked her to help him out in the case. Now, this is what her mother is in court for. She has a parking violation for parking on the sidewalk. According to the defendant, she was at her cousin's house for a party and figured that the only place where she could park to exit peacefully once everyone was leaving was on the sidewalk. She claimed that she would have moved the car immediately when the police arrived, but it took longer than she thought because the police arrived to end the party. By the time she managed to get down to her car, there was already a $100 ticket. Judge Janine's court is in session. Judge Caprio gives her a few options to choose from. Her mum could either pay the whole fine, plus the penalties, which would be the full $100, pay $50, or her mum could go off with a warning. With 3 options in front of her, the judge asks Janine to be fair, and she was. She said that the best option was the $50 one, and the whole courtroom erupted in laughter. You can almost hear her mum say, "Janine," in the background. The judge then gives Janine a 4th option. He asks her if she has had any breakfast at all that morning, and the kid replies in all honesty that she has not. She is starving, according to her. This gives the judge an idea, and he suggests that if her mother can go get her a great breakfast after this, then he will consider that as payment for the parking violation. Janine, as fair as she is, takes a moment to think about it. The judge even jokes that she is determined to make her mother pay. Still, the episode ends with her mother promising Janine a great breakfast, and the case is closed. You look amazing. Today in the courtroom, we have Kayla, who just so happens to be the daughter of Judge Caprio's friend. But that does not mean he is going to let her off easy. No, if anything, the judge claims that his friend specifically told him to charge Kayla the full amount whenever she is in his courtroom. But Kayla knows her way around the system. Right off the bat, she goes into complimenting the judge, saying he looks amazing. So, Kayla's in court for a red light violation. The judge shows the footage, and yup, there she is, crossing through a light that is clearly red. Now, the way this works is that anyone who shows up in Judge Caprio's courtroom has to plead their case well enough for them to catch a break. In Kayla's case, being his friend's daughter is not enough. That is when the judge asks a very important question: are you working? And Kayla tells him that she is not employed at this moment. There is a good reason for it though. She is a single mother to a 3-year-old, and that takes up almost all of her day. Since she has to do everything by herself, it also means that she barely gets any time to think, even if it is about red lights. The judge can sympathize with a hard-working mother who is just trying to get by in life, day by day. He says that he is willing to forgive the fine, as long as Kayla agrees to pay the court costs, which come up to around $35. This moves Kayla, and she could not have been happier. Compliments go a long way, and the judge ends the session by asking her if everyone in Johnston is legally required to carry around the Italian flag wherever they go. Apparently, yes. My husband is guilty. Meet Linda Fields and her wonderful husband. Linda's the defendant in this case, but she claims that while it was her car that got the violation, her husband was the guilty one. This case takes us back to 2019, and Linda Fields became an overnight sensation for the way she presented the case. This also might have been a court in Providence first, where the defendant is the one who calls the shots, and not the judge. So, here is what happened. The wonderful husband is also a wonderful father who goes to visit their son, who was in a very bad car accident. He does that 3 times every day, and during one of those scheduled trips to the hospital, he just so happened to cross a red line. Realizing that Linda's the one who calls the shots, not just at home, but wherever she goes, the judge lets her adjudicate this one. Realizing that Linda's the one who calls the shots, not just at home, but wherever she goes, the judge lets her adjudicate this one. Is the wonderful husband guilty or not? Linda says that she and her husband sat down to fight this case when they thought he had only sped through a yellow light. Later, when she saw that it was actually a red light, she told him he was on his own for this one. But there is another twist in this case. The judge reviews the footage himself, and that is when he notices a key detail. Yes, the wonderful husband did cross the red light, but he crossed by 0.3 of a second after the color changed to red. Now, according to the law, you have to give the defendant the benefit of the doubt when it is 0.2 of a second. The ball is in Linda's courtroom right now, and she says that the best way to punish her husband would be with a warning and having to take her out for dinner. The judge agrees. The broken gavel. At the end of every court in Providence case, Judge Caprio seals the judgment by banging his gavel. It is, after all, the customary thing for judges to do. While he has had that same gavel for decades now without it ever getting as much as a scratch, here comes 2-year-old Gavin, who broke it in under 2 seconds. His father, Sergio de Souza, was originally in court over a $25 parking ticket. Well, a broken gavel is now going to cost him another $50. This case confused the judge because Sergio only had a $25 ticket, and he just waited 2.5 hours for his case with his very fidgety 2-year-old. But Sergio was determined to prove he did not earn the ticket. He said that he was in family court, parked for an hour, but realized he would probably take longer and got another ticket for the parking meter. While the meter read those as 2 separate tickets, it was still for the same car. The judge understood what Sergio meant and quickly dismissed the case. Right in time, too. A second longer and Gavin would have taken that gavel home with him. Judge Caprio gets emotional. Andrea Chen appeared in court for a red light violation. She came with her mother. Andrea claimed that the violation was not by her because she had sent her car to the dealership back for a safety recall, where her car ended up staying for almost 3 weeks. During this time, the car was driven by someone at the dealership who violated the traffic signal. The judge understood immediately and recalled the case, exonerating Andrea and having the summons in the dealership's name. Now, this would have been the end of the case. But then it was Andrea's mother's turn to speak. While everyone in the courtroom groaned, the story ended up leaving everyone in tears. Judge Caprio's father was an Italian immigrant who started working in the United States as a milkman. One of the families he delivered milk to happened to be Andrea's grandmother's house. The mother-daughter spoke of how kind Judge Caprio's father was, leaving him emotional. He then recalled how his father was told by the company that if anyone did not pay their dues for 2 weeks, their milk supply would be ended. However, being the honest man that he was, he would pay money out of his own pocket if he believed a struggling family with kids could not afford to pay for milk. It was a beautiful story and a testament to who Judge Caprio idolizes. 93-year-old speeder Nicolas Sanchez stood in front of the judge, at 93 years old and with a full head of hair. He was in court for a red light violation, making a wrong right-hand turn. Nicolas clarified that he had a spotless record and that this was his first violation in over 72 years of driving. But his spotless record was the least interesting thing about him. Nicolas told the judge how he joined the Navy by forging his birth certificate at 16, was caught, but then joined the military for sure on his 17th birthday. He then said that 3 months into being recruited, he was sent for 29 months in the Pacific during World War II. Nicolas then told the judge about his time in the military, the many things he had seen, and even added personal stories, such as the fact that his father was a World War I veteran, and so were his uncles. All of them came back from the war. Now, the judge was going to dismiss the case anyway, and he claimed that there were veterans and children of veterans who would send in checks to cover traffic fines and costs of any defendants who had served to protect their country. This was an emotional day in court. The judge's grandson. While the car was registered in his mother's name, this young man was driving that night, which means that he was also the one who made a wrong right turn on a red light. The kid, who plays basketball at Hope High School, claimed that he thought he could make the turn on yellow, but the light changed too fast for him to stop. There is something about the kid that makes Judge Caprio think he deserves a break. For starters, he's only in high school. It did not look like he missed the signal by a whole lot, and also because he was on his way to getting into college soon. The judge made him a deal. He would strike the ticket, but the kid had to promise him that he would do well in college. The judge even said that he would put his chief investigator on the case, but that would not be necessary because, as it turns out, Judge Caprio's grandson studies at Hope High School too. This alleged grandson's name is Brendan Caprio. The kid says that Brendan talks about his grandfather, the judge, all the time. Well, the funny thing is that the judge, for the life of him, cannot think of any of his grandkids being named Brendan or going to Hope High School. It looks like there is someone at Hope High School who is really milking their last name, but who would not want to be related to the judge? The judge from India, Judge Caprio, has fans all over the world. In this case, Jamila Siamwala was called for a parking ticket. Along with her came her father, Hadri Siamwala, as well, who is a big fan of the judge. Jamila, who works at Brown, explained that her father often watches Facebook videos of court in Providence, and Hadri is starstruck. Judge Caprio thinks it is only fair to call him up to the podium with him. The judge allows Hadri to make the decision for him. So, Jamila had parked 6 minutes early at a location where you are not supposed to park between 8 and 10. Hadri explained that she should not be fined for it because she was in a hurry to drop her 5-year-old son off. But the judge said that it was completely his call, and to seal the deal, he would have to bang the gavel thrice. That was what Hadri did, forgiving his daughter's fine. The family made a core memory with this viral moment. Welcome to America. This defendant came to court with her adorable 8-year-old daughter, who also doubled as her translator for the case. The mother was charged with speeding in a school zone, and she claimed it was because her daughter, the same one who was in court with her, was feeling ill that day. Judge Caprio called the little girl up to the podium to act as his assistant for the case. He told her that, based on her mother's explanation, what would be the best punishment. Now, the girl had the option to choose between $100, $50, or $0. She decided the best thing to do was to teach her mother that it is not okay to go fast in a school district. $50. The little girl told the judge that she wanted to be a doctor when she grew up. And that was when the judge learned that the entire family had immigrated from Syria 3 years ago to flee the war. The woman's husband also walked up to the courtroom, and the judge remarked that they had a wonderful young daughter, and he was happy to welcome them to America. Judge Caprio himself is the son of an Italian immigrant who came to the United States for a better life for his family. Now, the judge asked the little girl again, should her mother have to pay the $50, or should they call it a wash? This time, she said it would be okay to let her mom go off with a warning. Ben Affleck played me times were tough for everyone when the world shut down in 2019 following the coronavirus pandemic. Things were especially hard for William Sequeira, who had just gotten out of prison after serving nearly 30 years. That was not the only surprising bit about what he had to say, though. The courtroom also learned that the defendant was the inspiration for Ben Affleck's character in the film The Town. William told the judge that he had been trying to turn his life around after being released from prison 2 years ago. He got a job delivering produce around town, but because of work restrictions surrounding the pandemic, he was limited to only 20 hours a week. He wanted to make those hours count, getting as much work done as he could. In the process, he ran through 3 red lights, which is why he was in court that day. While the judge could not condone the 100 bank robberies that the guy had committed, he also had a soft spot for the man for wanting to turn his life around. William also told the judge that he went from having so much money that he would have to keep it in milk cartons in the refrigerator to not even having enough money to pay rent. The judge reminded him that it was, after all, stolen money, but he could sympathize with someone going through a hard time. So, to cut him a break, the judge said that he would be using one of the several donations they received to cover his parking ticket. An honest guy, this defendant found himself in court fighting a parking ticket after he was found speeding in a school zone. The man, an immigrant who could barely understand English, explained to the judge that he worked as a pizza delivery guy for Millie's Pizza. Now, the judge wanted to give him a break. He asked the defendant if he ever sped to deliver pizzas faster, and the guy said yes. The judge asked him again, and he said yes again. When the judge asked him a third time, and his answer was still yes, Judge Caprio realized he was dealing with the most honest defendant in history. He could not charge him for being a hard-working and honest guy. Yes, he was speeding in a school district, but the judge noted that it was around 8 at night when school was not in session. He explained that the defendant was free to go. Can I give you a hug? This case got Judge Caprio all choked up. Gladys Rodriguez was in court for 9 traffic violations, most of them for speeding. The judge is always willing to ask for an explanation when it comes to these things, instead of just slapping the defendants with a fine. In this case, Gladys had close to a $500 fine because of all the violations. She claimed that in almost every situation, she was escaping a violent encounter with an ex. The judge asked Officer Quincy, who confirmed that in more than a few of these instances, Gladys had reported that someone was stalking her and her daughter. While the judge sympathized with her position, he also noted that a few of those tickets were just because she was traveling too fast. But seeing the poor woman cry while telling her story moved something in him. The thing about Court in Providence is that a lot of people will send in donations to the show to cover violations and fines for those who cannot afford to pay them. For a staffing recruiter and a single mother, it had to be extremely difficult to come up with the $500 fine. So, Judge Caprio decided to give her a break. He compiled 3 donations together to make up her fine, and Gladys was thankful for the act of kindness. Before her case was dismissed, though, she asked if she could give the judge a hug, and he is always willing for a hug. The judge's son gets a ticket. There have been times in court where the judge believes that it would have been a lot cheaper for the defendants to just pay the ticket. For example, April Chinchity did not have to come to court 2 hours early and wait for her case when she could have just paid a $20 ticket. He said he was dying to hear her explanation, and she had a good one. While there are parking ordinances around town, a lot of them can be tricky. In April's case, she parked where the law said she could park for free, but not within specific timings. It was a bit confusing, and the judge could sympathize because his own son, David, was in a similar situation. But the judge told his son that he had better pay it, and David was there in court, showed everyone his ticket, and told them that he had paid it already.